people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
That what hurts the women's boxing is the payday. You know, women rather play basketball than to be boxing because they probably can make, you know, more money with sponsors, even if it's not a great contract with the WNBA. So I don't see a lot of females interested in the sport of boxing or like that, or promoters actually investing a lot of money into it. That's why Jake Paul came into the picture and gave Serrano that crazy contract.
Well, I think the caller meant well, but his analysis was off base, far off base. Because, for starters, when you compare the WNBA to women's boxing, believe it or not, women's boxing is more fleshed out over a longer duration of time and provides many more opportunities to many more different women of different sizes. You know, you have to be built a certain way to play in the WNBA. You can't go in there 4'11", 5'4". The average height for a WNBA player is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6 feet. 6 feet even. Well, you don't have to be 6 feet tall to be a boxer. You can be 4 foot nothing in women's boxing, and there is a division out there for you. But in the WNBA, there are only so many slots available, only so many slots open, only so many teams. It's all fixed. It's set. So when you say that there are that many more women who would rather play basketball as opposed to box, well, how many of these women actually can? How many of these women stand in at about 6 feet tall? You know, I actually think there are more women boxers out there than there are women basketball players, because it's quite uncommon for a woman to stand in at about 6 feet tall. The average height for a woman in America is what, 5'4"? When you say that more women would rather play basketball, how many of them actually can in the WNBA that's been operating at a net negative since it was founded? Subsidized by the men's league, the NBA, the WNBA has never actually made a profit. It's never actually made any money. Women's boxing has. Believe it or not, we all know about Layla Ali in her heyday and Christy Martin, but there are lesser-known fighters that were draws, like Germany's own Regina Helmick, who was making a lot of money long before Katie Taylor and Amanda and Clarissa came into it. Regina Helmick, Cecilia Brækhus, who fought in front of crowds as large as 10,000 in her native Norway. When you compare that to the WNBA that was and still is operating at a net negative, women's boxing has actually turned out to be more profitable. And that's why now, virtually every major promotional outfit has at least 1 or 2 girls signed to their stables. I mean, Top Rank just signed a new girl. Top Rank, Golden Boy, Matchroom, Queensbury, Boxer, MVP. And those are just the big ones everybody knows, that at this point in the juncture, at every level of boxing, prospect level, contender level, championship level, women's boxing matches are happening. They're happening on GBM, on Yvonne Michelle Promotions in Canada, and Eye of the Tiger Management in Canada. They're happening at 360 Promotions here in America, in LA, OTX, and any number of smaller promotional outfits based out of America, south of the border in Mexico. Women's boxing is nothing new. It's been going on for years. In many ways, it's more fleshed out in Mexico than it is here in the States. It's more fleshed out in Argentina, that's been hosting a vibrant women's boxing scene for a long time now, unbeknownst to most. So when I hear the caller say that women would prefer to play basketball than box, that's not what the numbers show. Not in North America, not in South America, not across the pond in the United Kingdom, and all those different parts of Europe that are producing women boxers with regularity. And just think, it's not going to stop. The next crop will be available after the next Olympics. What amateur standouts there are and what girls manage to medal will be picked up by major promotional outfits. So when you say that the problem with women's boxing are the paydays, there are actually more paydays and more opportunities for a woman boxer than a woman basketball player. Because there are only so many players to a team, and there are only so many teams to play on, where there's no limit to how many fighters can campaign at a given weight in women's boxing, anywhere in between atom weight to heavyweight. There's room for every shape, every kind of woman out there. There's no cap on these divisions. There's no set limit to how many women boxers can be active at a given weight. That's why it yields more opportunities. There's more work needs doing. There always is. But when you compare women's boxing to women's basketball, believe it or not, women's boxing is already more fleshed out. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, ahead of tomorrow's mega match in the United Kingdom, why Boxingscene will not be at Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. Boxingscene had hoped to be on site to bring you coverage of this weekend's event in London and the bill headlined by Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. But the organizers of the Ring's event have chosen not to accredit this outlet. Boxingscene was not declined to pass, nor have we been told the media section is oversubscribed, as has been the case previously. At the time of this writing, we have simply not received a response to our applications to cover both Fight Week and the night itself. A big part of me doesn't want to go down this route, explaining why Boxingscene is not at these events, but I feel we owe our readership. This article was written by Tris Dixon. Not everyone is entitled to accreditation, but Boxingscene had previously been able to work uninhibited with working press passes in Saudi Arabia and at the BMO Stadium in LA. We were not accredited for Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois, although we did receive an email beforehand about our coverage, and then we were told Artur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol 2 was oversubscribed. This week, our applications, filed through Boxer and Matchroom, which both had us at shows in Nottingham and Birmingham, respectively last week, have been left unanswered. And having spoken to several people linked with the event, fingers have been pointed to each of the groups involved with accreditation, and we are no further forward. Boxingscene has been, and will continue to be, critical of events, subjects, fighters, promoters, and anything else when we deem the facts call for it. In the same way we, as an editorial organization, are critical of other promoters and indeed, fighters and other associated figures, when necessary, those other promoters know and expect it, and probably resent us for some of our criticism. Maybe. But they also know that it comes from a desire to improve the sport for the health of fighters and benefit of the consumers. Boxingscene remains independent and impartial, and we are within our rights to discuss the subjects that we understand are increasingly taboo, including freedom of the media and sports washing. There it is. This column is not a declaration of war, nor a sign of submission, but a lamentable indictment of the shift in journalism away from a traditional version that has long been established and respected, even if sometimes grudgingly. This isn't only in boxing either. It is rapidly spreading across the sporting landscape. It is unfashionable for journalists to ask hard questions. It is far more fashionable to want to be friends with the figures who are meant to be covered with a discerning eye. Well, look, freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence. If you go ahead and accuse a Turkey El Al-Sheikh and all the events that he's putting together as a means to sports wash, when you call it sports washing, you can't expect that they're going to like that, and then you can't expect afterwards they're going to welcome you with open arms. What you say has consequences. What you write. At Boxingscene, we are a group of writers and editors and individuals and homosexuals. What? No less. Who have no agenda aside from being objective and truthful to ourselves and our readers. Most of our staff have been professional journalists for more than a decade. In fact, the majority of us have been doing it for 2 decades and some longer. Although some of us might have endured several nuclear spats with promoters and managers, none of us before have been accused of having an agenda.
Maybe they don't.
We at Boxing Scene will continue to do what we believe is right, and we will stand up for the things we believe in, and do everything in our power to cover these events with the same robust detail and passion and directions for the sport to which our readers have become accustomed.
You can still cover the event. You can still cover the action from the comfort of your home by purchasing the pay-per-view. This is the modern day and age. You don't actually need to be there to see what happened.
Boxing Scene will be here for the fans, the fighters, and those in the business. We will tell the stories. We will write the columns. We will interview without prejudice, focusing on what we are doing and trying to be the best we can be, without focusing on what others are doing, and in spite of what others might try to do to us. Yet our publication, after scooping a 1-2-3 for event coverage at the recent Boxing Writers Association of America Awards, will not be at this weekend's event featuring Benn and Eubank.
Are they being ostracized? Are they being shut out by Turkey LL Sheikh? Maybe.
But this is the inconvenient truth of covering the sport here today. If I make an unflattering video about a Brian Norman, for example, I cannot expect to get access to that fighter moving forward.
And that doesn't make it right, but that's the way it is.
Our colleagues in the boxing media have told us about a campaign to sabotage Boxing Scene. Several staff members have resisted overtures to join the ring, and this column is merely a commentary on how things have gone and a signpost to where things are seemingly going. At Boxing Scene, what we're trying to do is our jobs. We have, in this staff's first year on site, worked hard to create a world-class team, and that was reflected with the recent 18 award citations by the BWAA, which we think is a testament to industry recognition of our objectivity, professionalism, and quality. Is every article a home run? No. Is every day on the site awesome? No. Do we make mistakes? Yes. Can we please everyone? No. We see the comments. We know how divisive topics, fights, and fighters are. And our job is to create debate, apply critical thought, and tell engaging stories. None of that will change, alas. This week, it won't be from ringside.
Now, a part of me sympathizes with Boxing Scene not being allowed access to this weekend's event, but at the same time, I understand it's an occupational hazard, and when you rattle the cages and ruffle the feathers, this is what's going to happen.
But the effect that has on you being able to do your job, I think, is being overstated in this article, because this is not the Sporty Lewis era where you had to be there to see it to describe it.
You're struggling to keep up with the times, keep up with the Joneses, at a point in the juncture where print is very much a dying medium, and it's not your fault per se, so much as people don't read as much as they used to, and they are in fact becoming dumber with lower attention spans. So what do?
Change the packaging and provide your readership, provide your subscribers a more interactive experience, because that is how some content creators went from covering boxing in their own homes to being there live. Content creators like Showbiz the Adult, Ade Oladipo,
The War Room, The Green Couch.
Those intended to read these articles also wish to participate in the experience, give their take. Give them an opportunity to do that.
Every Joe Blow with a YouTube channel is a vlogger now that covers the sport of boxing in their own way, with their own flavor. You have to do that now too.
Every monetized Instagram account, every monetized Twitter account, every YouTuber with a YouTube channel.
You don't need to be there to cover this weekend's fight, to give your take on it, your flavor.
A push towards originality might be just what the doctor ordered for Boxing Scene.
What is this? Feel sorry for Chris Eubank Day? Are you going to feel sorry for Conor Benn when Eubank's a stone heavier than him in the ring at Tottenham tomorrow? No. So, it is what it is. You've got a job to do. You're the middleweight champion of the world. You fight at 160 pounds and you couldn't make it. No big deal. I'm not saying hang him out to dry. I'm just saying you miss weight. Unprofessional. Expensive.
Yeah, I agree with Eddie. I don't feel the least bit sorry for Chris Eubank Jr., even though some people do. Former undisputed champion Josh Taylor said, I think it should be called off. Eubank looked terrible, and he has a rehydration clause chucked in there on top of that as well. I think this is potentially a very disastrous night for boxing waiting to happen. I desperately hope this is not the case.
Let me remind you of something, guys. Chris Eubank Jr. has been making 160 pounds for what's it been? 4, 5 fights now?
I mean, when is the last time that Chris Eubank Jr. fought as a super middleweight? Because if it's that serious and that dangerous, then he should have just stayed up there when he was up there.
What's the problem?
He missed the weight by a few ounces, right? But guess what?
What?
Whether he was fighting Benn this weekend or somebody else, he still would have had to make that weight because he's the one who's campaigning as a middleweight.
And he has been. This ain't nothing new.
So many people are hung up on the rehydration clause in light of Chris Eubank Jr. missing the weight when the rehydration clause don't come into it until after that. Him missing the weight is just him missing the weight.
Now you see, Terrence Crawford, 37 years old, older than Chris. He just fought at 154. His next fight is at 168. Wouldn't be as high a climb for Chris because he's actually been there before.
He chooses to stay at 160, and we're supposed to feel sorry for him? Was he or was he not offered a Canelo Alvarez fight in America that he rejected at a healthier weight than this?
He was. He rejected that fight at super middleweight months ago.
There was a Canelo fight on the table, a Lara fight on the table, and a Hamza Shiraz fight on the table for months. This is what he chose, and he's not a little boy.
So that when I see Josh Taylor citing the dangers of tomorrow's fight,
And all the pearl clutching, it just strikes me as a veiled hate of Benn to the point you're trying to make Chris out to be a victim for something he chose to do.
now Benn's doping fiasco has made him a social pariah in some circles, but in a sport where anyone, from Canelo to Tyson Fury to Alicia Baumgartner,
There are so many fighters getting popped left and right, I'm wondering, how many of their fights are you boycotting?
and are you boycotting tomorrow's fight?
Because if you're not, then suck it up, Buttercup. This is the business, and these are the breaks. Chris Eubank Jr. didn't have to fight Benn. He chose to.
If at his mid-30s it's becoming more and more difficult to make middleweight, then move up to super middle.
You're uploading these videos of yourself through this hard cut to your social media as a means to curry sympathy. So that if things go sideways tomorrow, you got a built-in excuse. But this is the same weight you've been making.
You made it for Liam Smith 2 times, then you made it for Camille Zeremata. What, all of a sudden it's different because it's Kana?
He's not a victim, and there ain't no good guys in this story. There ain't no bad ones either.
No?
It's a battle for leverage. It's a battle for advantages for Conor, the same way it's a battle of advantages for Chris. Because for starters, why is Chris fighting a guy who spent most of his career as a welterweight? Why didn't he fight Lara, Hamza Shiraz? Why didn't he fight Canelo?
He stands to make $10 million tomorrow, and I'm supposed to feel sorry for him?
Now, those aforementioned fights would not have paid out to Chris what tomorrow's fight is paying out to Chris. So he knows exactly what he signed up for and why. And we do too.
I think Conor's gonna beat him.
Because of what he is willing to subject himself to make some coin.
I got Benn winning a fight.
Possibly by way of knockout. Chris Eubank Jr. already got his warning when he got knocked out by Liam Smith. What these weight cuts are doing to him. If he persists, that's on him.
You go ahead and you do it anyway. What the hell am I supposed to say?
He's being compensated. He's being compensated plenty for this fight, of which there may be another, both with massive paydays attached.
So put your violins away, huh?